Welcome to the dairies of science fiction, where extraordinary stories come to life. Enjoy the journey. Kael stumbled off the shuttle ramp, catching himself on the railing just before face-planting into a puddle of what smelled suspiciously like ionized algae. Elyndra's city stretched before him in a riot of light and motion. Floating market platforms glimmered with bioluminescent signage. Hovercarts zoomed past at precarious angles, and somewhere above, a trio of sky beasts darted through the neon haze, shrieking in a chorus that sounded suspiciously like laughter at his expense. He muttered something about getting a grip, and promptly tripped over his own foot, narrowly avoiding an ornamental fountain that sprayed sparkling liquid in every direction. A passing alien bystander raised an eyebrow so high it nearly touched their crown. Kael winced, and that was before he saw her. Princess Lyara. She stood on the edge of a hovering balcony, watching him with long, graceful ears swaying slightly, silver hair braided down her back and catching the sunlight in iridescent streaks. Her eyes, violet with flecks of gold, blinked in amusement, though her posture remained regal, almost statuesque. Kael's instinct was to bow, but instead he ended up tripping over his own shadow, arms flailing, and somehow, by some cosmic joke, knocked a hovering drone into a fountain, creating a small geyser of sparkling water that sprayed him head to toe. Lyara tilted her head, clearly trying not to laugh outright, and Kael could almost hear the snort that threatened to escape her lips. "Ah," he croaked, water dripping from his hair, "graceful as ever, your highness." Lyara's lips quirked into the faintest smile. "You have a unique way of announcing your presence." Before Kael could reply, the shrieking sky beasts returned, dive-bombing the balcony with the precision of tiny, angry missiles. Kael panicked and leapt forward, arms flailing. Against all odds, he shoved Lyara out of the way, tripping backward and sending one of the creatures spinning into a stack of market crates. The creature yelped and disappeared in a burst of glittering light, leaving Kael panting on the balcony floor, staring at the princess in horrified anticipation. Instead of anger, her eyes sparkled with amusement and, surprisingly, gratitude. "You saved me," she said, her voice melodic and calm, though a hint of mischief lingered in it. Kael straightened, water dripping from his boots, and gave a sheepish salute. "All in a day's work, mostly. I mean, I didn't technically save the whole city, just you, but that counts, right?" Her laugh, soft, bright, and almost musical, filled the balcony. Kael blinked. He wasn't supposed to hear laughs like that. He was supposed to be a serious human, a competent protector. But here he was, soaked, dizzy, and inexplicably enchanted. Later, as the chaos of Elyndra's streets settled into the usual hum of commerce and hover traffic, Kael found himself wandering, half deliberately, half accidentally, into a hidden alcove beneath the palace. He had meant to apologize for the public spectacle, but the air shimmered with a strange energy, humming softly under his feet. There, nestled in a crystalline pedestal, lay a staff. Its surface seemed alive, translucent with swirling colors, and it pulsed as though it had a heartbeat of its own. Kael reached out, curiosity overpowering caution, and the moment his fingers brushed its surface, light erupted around him. The staff pulled itself into his hands as if recognizing a long-lost companion, and Kael yelped in surprise, nearly dropping it, and himself, into the alcove floor. The staff's hum resonated inside his mind, not words exactly, but a series of images, feelings, and cheeky little nudges. "Well, it seems we're stuck together. Good luck, human, don't spill anything this time." Kael blinked, looking at the weapon, looking at Lyara, and then back at the weapon. Hello, I think you picked the wrong guy." Lyara appeared at the alcove entrance, long ears twitching, hands on her hips, eyes wide. "Or perhaps," she said, "you are exactly the one it was looking for." Kael swallowed hard, the weight of the staff suddenly heavier in his hands. Somehow, amidst the absurdity, the jokes, and the tripping, he felt it, the first flicker of destiny. Something told him this wasn't just protection anymore. Not by a long shot. Kael woke with a start, tangled in what appeared to be a luminous blanket that shifted colors every time he blinked. Elyndra's morning light streamed through the palace windows, casting long, soft beams across the polished floors, and for a moment he considered that maybe he'd dreamed the previous day's chaos. Then he glanced down and saw the staff, still glowing faintly, still humming, still very much attached to his hand. Great. Apparently the staff was clingy. He tried to pry it loose. It didn't budge. Okay, he muttered. Maybe I'm officially the luckiest human in the galaxy. The staff vibrated, almost like a mischievous giggle. Kael jumped back, only to trip over the blanket again and send it floating into a nearby wall. The blanket gracefully curved through the air, wrapping itself around a floating chandelier and somehow returning to his bed, as if nothing had happened. Kael pinched the bridge of his nose. Elyndra's technology was as polite as it was deadly. Lyara appeared in the doorway, long ears angled forward, arms crossed. "Still wrestling with it?" she asked, one eyebrow raised. Her silver braid glimmered as she moved, catching stray light, and Kael, soaked in last night's fountain incident, felt an involuntary flush rise to his cheeks. "I swear it's trying to embarrass me," he said, waving the staff like a delicate but very temperamental cat. "I'm just a human. Humans aren't supposed to hum, or glow. Or, you mean wield a sentient weapon capable of planetary defense?" Lyara interrupted, a teasing lilt in her voice. "Yes, humans aren't generally equipped for that." Kael blinked. "Not equipped, huh? That explains why I tripped over the sky beasts yesterday." He gave a mock salute. "I assure you, Your Highness, all part of my cunning battle strategy." Lyara sighed, stepping closer and tapped the staff gently. Immediately, a holographic display shimmered around Kael, projections of celestial maps, arcane symbols, and schematics that defied ordinary geometry. The staff, it seemed, was determined to teach him, though with a sardonic sense of humor that frequently interrupted lessons with sarcastic annotations. "Try not to poke yourself this time," it quipped, as Kael swatted at a floating hologram with his sleeve and accidentally triggered a miniature light explosion that charred his pajamas. Is it supposed to do that?" he asked, waving a hand to disperse the sparks. Lyara chuckled. "Yes, mostly it's testing you and judging your reflexes and probably your taste in pajamas." The morning passed in a blur of misfires and accidental genius. Kael discovered that the staff responded to intention rather than skill. He merely had to asterisk think, and the weapon would channel his thoughts into action. Most of the time, his thoughts were about not falling over, which created hilariously unpredictable results. Floating orbs of light formed protective barriers. Beams of energy juggled themselves harmlessly above his head. And once, entirely by accident, he teleported his breakfast into the palace garden. Lyara appeared moments later, holding a perfectly toasted slice of alien bread, her expression somewhere between amusement and exasperation. "You have potential," she said. By afternoon, the palace corridors echoed with whispers. The shadowy Assassin Guild rumors weren't idle. Kael's first real test arrived when a sleek, metallic drone, almost invisible except for the faint shimmer of its energy field, zipped past the palace window. Kael, still thinking about last night's tripping fiasco, accidentally activated the staff with a flick of his wrist. A ribbon of energy shot out, wrapping around the drone and gently depositing it on a balcony far below, where it sputtered harmlessly before exploding into harmless sparks. Lyara raised an eyebrow. "Well, that worked." Kael grinned sheepishly. "See, strategy, totally intentional, I mean maybe." As the sun dipped toward Elyndra's floating horizon, casting long shadows over the palace spires, Kael realized something unsettling and exhilarating. The staff wasn't just a weapon. It was a partner, a teacher, and, if he was honest, a very judgmental friend. And the danger lurking outside those glowing palace walls wasn't going to wait for him to grow comfortable. Kael swallowed, glancing at Lyara. "So, we're really doing this, huh?" Liara's long ears twitched, a faint smile playing on her lips. "Yes, and somehow I think the galaxy is going to regret underestimating a human with a sense of humor." The staff hummed in agreement, or perhaps in anticipation of the chaos to come. Kael held it tighter, a mixture of dread, excitement, and absurd pride swelling in his chest. This was no longer just protection. This was the beginning of a very messy, very unpredictable adventure. Kael had just managed to untangle himself from a hovering curtain of holographic lilies when the alarm klaxons wailed through the palace corridors. Elyndra's usual serene hum of activity fractured into a chaotic chorus of squeaking hover carts, shouting attendants, and the faint, unmistakable sound of someone or something hacking the palace's energy shields. Kael yelped, dropped his breakfast toast again, and instinctively raised the staff, which shimmered in recognition, almost as if it were sighing, "Finally! Some action. Try not to trip, human." Lyara appeared beside him in a fluid motion that made Kael's heart do something inconveniently heroic. "They've breached the outer perimeter," she said, her long ears flicking back, signaling alertness. "And judging by the trajectory, they're targeting the ceremonial archives." Kael blinked. "Archives, that's a library, right?" "Not just any library," Lyara said, glancing at him with one eyebrow arched. "It contains the schematics of Elyndra's defensive fleets and the designs for the planetary stabilizers. If they get in—" Her voice trailed off, leaving the implication to hang like ionized fog. Kael nodded solemnly, which looked exactly like him nodding and tripping simultaneously. He stumbled forward, staff glowing, and somehow managed to block a laser bolt from a small drone that zipped past his shoulder. The staff hummed, bending light and energy into a protective bubble around him. The drone ricocheted harmlessly against the palace walls and tumbled into a fountain that, ironically, reminded Kael of his first, very wet, day in Elyndra. Lyara ducked a second incoming bolt, her hair catching the reflected light and scattering it into a cascade of glittering strands. "You really do trip into heroism," she said, sidestepping with agility Kael couldn't hope to match. "Yeah, it's a talent," Kael replied, ducking as another drone buzzed past his ear. He swung the staff instinctively, producing a ribbon of energy that looped around the drone and flung it harmlessly into a floating cart of glow fruit. The explosion of light and juice sprayed across the corridor, temporarily blinding a pair of guards and covering Kael in sticky, phosphorescent pulp. "Totally calculated distraction," he shouted cheerfully. Amid the chaos, Kael noticed that the staff was reacting to his emotions as much as his thoughts. Fear made its glow falter. Determination sharpened its edge. Tentatively, he concentrated, thinking only of shielding Lyara, and the staff responded with a radiant dome of swirling light that deflected incoming attacks with elegant precision. Kael felt a moment of triumph, before stepping backward into a maintenance hatch and nearly sending himself plummeting into the palace's lower levels. Lyara grabbed his arm, long ears twitching. "You really do have a knack for unconventional tactics," she said, stifling a laugh. "Unconventional? I prefer the term brilliant improvisation," Kael replied, brushing off phosphorescent fruit pulp. "And yes, it's all part of my secret plan. Confuse the enemy with chaos and hope nothing explodes in a terribly permanent way." They moved through the palace corridors, dodging drones, evading energy traps, and occasionally encountering startled palace staff who mistook Kael's clumsy heroics for some avant-garde security protocol. Eventually, they reached the archives, where the main intruder, a sleek humanoid assassin clad in reflective armor, hovered just above the floor, scanning for the central terminal. Kael's staff twitched, humming in recognition of the danger, and with a quick mental nudge, it unleashed a wave of disorienting energy. The assassin stumbled, slipping on the scattered phosphorescent fruit, and tumbled into a stack of levitating crates. Lyara's laugh echoed through the archives, a mixture of relief and amusement. "Remarkable, you trip into saving the galaxy again." Kael bowed theatrically, nearly toppling over. "I call it style, Your Highness, pure, unintentional style." As the last drone sputtered and exploded harmlessly outside the windows, Kael realized that despite the chaos, He and Lyara had survived, and more than survived, they had begun to trust each other in ways words couldn't capture. The staff's glow softened, almost approvingly, and Kael, still sticky with alien fruit, allowed himself the smallest grin. Maybe, just maybe, the galaxy had chosen the right human after all. The sun hung low over Elyndra's floating skyline, turning the city's spires into glimmering prisms of gold and violet. Kael wiped alien fruit pulp from his hair, which still smelled faintly of ionized citrus, and adjusted the staff in his hand. The weapon hummed softly, like a cat purring with anticipation, clearly enjoying every moment of Kael's continued clumsiness. Lyara appeared beside him, moving with effortless grace, long ears angled forward, silver braid glinting in the fading light. "You do realize," she said, eyes narrowing slightly, "that the attackers are still out there, and that they probably won't appreciate your creative style of defense." "Creative? Oh, I prefer strategically unpredictable," Kael replied, twirling the staff once, though accidentally setting off a minor pulse of light that sent a nearby ornamental drone spinning in circles. Unpredictable keeps them on their toes. And on occasion it entertains me, which is crucial. Lyara couldn't help a small smile, though she shook her head. "I think you may have just redefined entertaining." The duo moved toward the palace gates, which shimmered with protective energy fields that flickered in response to the staff's hum. Outside, Elyndra's streets stretched into the distance, floating market platforms swaying gently above the ground, hover carts zipping in unpredictable patterns, and citizens going about their evening routines, blissfully unaware of the approaching threat. Kael took a deep breath, trying to focus. The staff's glow pulsed, almost impatiently. "Come on, human, show me what you've got," it seemed to whisper. Without warning, a fleet of sleek assault drones emerged from the horizon, gliding silently through the violet sky. Their metallic surfaces reflected Elyndra's ambient light, making them look like swarms of predatory stars. Kael's first instinct was to panic, but instead the staff leapt from his hands, hovering midair and projecting a holographic map of the area. Kael blinked. "Well, that's new. Helpful, though slightly judgmental." Lyara smirked, "Judgmental? You haven't seen anything yet. Just wait until it starts criticizing your footwork mid-combat." The drones descended, energy cannons glowing ominously, but Kael discovered something astonishing. When he concentrated, the staff bent reality just enough to create illusions of himself and Lyara, scattering the drones in confusion. He darted through floating platforms, narrowly avoiding a tipped hover cart, and each accidental stumble somehow became an advantage. One trip sent a drone tumbling into a stack of levitating crates. Another misstep triggered a burst of energy that corralled multiple drones into a harmless spin of light. Kael began to notice a pattern. His clumsiness wasn't a liability, it was a form of chaotic brilliance. Lyara followed seamlessly, long ears twitching as she deflected laser beams and leapt between platforms with the elegance of a practiced warrior. "I have to admit," she said, her voice cutting through the hum of drones and energy pulses, "you're remarkably effective at accidental heroism." "Remarkably effective," Kael repeated, tripping over the edge of a platform and bouncing on a floating crate. "I like the sound of that, makes me feel important." As the battle continued, Kael learned to synchronize with the staff in unexpected ways. He could project small shields to protect civilians, redirect energy blasts with flamboyant gestures, and even manipulate the drones' targeting systems to make them chase each other instead of him. Lyara laughed more than once, ducking behind him as a rogue drone spiraled past, then throwing a playful glance over her shoulder. "You're lucky the staff is patient," she said. Kael grinned, energy pulsing from the staff as he vaulted from one floating platform to another. "I'm lucky the universe has a sense of humor," he replied, narrowly avoiding an explosive crate. By the time the last drone sputtered out of the sky in a harmless explosion of sparks and light, the streets were littered with small, glowing fragments, hover carts wobbling gently, and the faint smell of fried, ionized fruit lingering in the air. Kael stood, chest heaving, staff humming proudly in his hands. Lyara approached, her expression a mixture of awe and exasperation. "You make chaos look almost elegant," she said, brushing a stray piece of glowing debris off her arm. Kael bowed dramatically, nearly tipping himself off the edge of the platform. "Elegance is my specialty, followed closely by heroism, confusion, and modesty," he said. The staff pulsed warmly, almost approvingly, as if agreeing that this was exactly the kind of human it had chosen. For a brief moment, Kael allowed himself to think. Maybe this chaotic, ridiculous, improbable style of heroism was exactly what Elyndra needed. And maybe, just maybe, he was finally starting to understand his role, not as a mere protector, but as something far more unpredictable, far more important, and far more entertaining. Kael awoke to a chorus of hums and clicks that sounded suspiciously like the palace itself trying to gossip about him. The staff, glowing faintly on the bedside table, pulsed impatiently, almost as if it had spent the night rehearsing sarcastic quips in his mind. He groaned, rubbing his eyes and muttering something about being chosen by a glowing, judgmental stick. Lyara appeared, as if summoned by his grumbling, her long ears tilted forward, silver braid catching the morning light. "You've been summoned by the Council of Elders," she said, voice even but tinged with amusement. "They've heard about your recent exploits." Kael blinked. "Council of Elders exploits. Last I checked, I was covered in glowing fruit pulp and flinging drones into fountains." Lyara smirked. "Exactly, that's the kind of heroism they take seriously." They moved through the palace corridors, Kael attempting to keep pace without tripping over his own feet. The staff floated obediently beside him, its glow synchronizing with his heartbeat, almost like it was mocking him for moving too slowly. At the council chamber, a semicircular room suspended above the city, the elders sat in high-backed chairs that seemed to float, their robes shimmering with faint energy signatures. Their eyes, each a different shade of violet, gold, or silver, regarded Kael with curiosity and more than a little skepticism. "Human," intoned the eldest, voice like a low hum vibrating through the room. "You wield a weapon older than most of Elyndra's histories. Explain why the staff has chosen you." Kael swallowed, glanced at Lyara, and raised the staff slightly. "Well, it sort of picked me, and it seems to enjoy me. Also, I make it laugh sometimes." He paused, noticing the silence that followed, which I think counts for something. A ripple of restrained amusement passed through the elders. Lyara suppressed a smile, long ears twitching. The staff hummed, approving or maybe amused at his audacity. The eldest elder leaned forward. "The staff's judgment is unusual, but it is precise. A threat approaches, one that could destabilize planetary cores and warp entire sectors. We require your assistance, not just as a protector of the princess, but as a pivotal force in preserving the galaxy itself." Kael's eyes widened. "Galaxy-level preservation? I thought I was just stopping drones and fruit explosions." Lyara's braids shimmered as she placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "This is bigger than any of us," she said, "and you are bigger than you realize." The staff vibrated, projecting holographic schematics of a rogue starship approaching Elyndra at unimaginable speed. Its hull pulsed with energy, a combination of ancient Elyndran technology and alien weaponry designed to disrupt planetary cores. Kael leaned closer, fascinated, the staff guiding him through the ship's defenses with intuitive gestures. Every motion felt alive, every mistake became a learning moment, every laugh a bridge to understanding the weapon's deeper potential. "Okay," Kael muttered, twirling the staff and almost knocking over a floating chair. "So, we stop a rogue starship with a glow stick that talks back. Got it." Lyara's smile was faint but steady. "More than just a glow stick, and more than just you. Together we have a chance. But it requires trust, improvisation, and yes, a sense of humor." Kael's grin returned, tinged with determination. "Trust, improvisation, humor. Check, check, and check." He raised the staff, now thrumming with confidence, and for the first time it felt like a seamless extension of himself rather than an unpredictable, sarcastic companion. The council nodded. Then prepare, human. The fate of Elyndra, and perhaps the galaxy, depends on the unpredictable courage of the chosen. Kael exhaled, the hum of the staff syncing with his racing pulse. Somehow, he had gone from clumsy protector to pivotal figure, and the absurdity of the situation didn't escape him. "Great," he muttered. "Galaxy saved, and I still haven't figured out how to pour breakfast without destroying half a room." Lyara's laugh followed him as they left the chamber. "You'll learn," she said, long ears twitching in amusement. "And somehow, I suspect the galaxy will be better for it." Outside, Elyndra shimmered under the violet horizon, the floating platform swaying gently, as if the city itself was holding its breath. Kael gripped the staff tighter, ready for the coming storm, aware that everything beyond the palace walls had just become very real and very dangerous. Kael groaned as he landed awkwardly on the practice platform, the staff nearly slipping from his hands. Elyndra's training hall hovered above the city, its translucent floors revealing the glowing streets below, a dizzying spectacle for anyone prone to vertigo, which, as Kael had discovered, included himself. The staff pulsed lightly, as if sighing, and Kael muttered, "Very funny universe, real funny." Lyara floated beside him, moving with a grace that made Kael want to apologize on behalf of all humans. Her long ears tilted slightly, sensing the faint energy shifts in the room. "Focus," she said calmly, though there was a hint of amusement in her violet eyes. "The staff responds to intention, not force. Calm your mind and it will follow." Kael took a deep breath, glaring at the staff like it had personally offended him. He willed his thoughts toward control. Just make it do something useful, please, and the staff responded with a gentle shimmer, hovering upright and pulsing in sync with his heartbeat. Victory, sort of. He wobbled on the platform, arms flailing, but managed not to fall this time. "Progress," Lyara said, a teasing lilt in her voice. "Barely, but it counts." Kael grinned sheepishly. "I'll take barely. At least the city hasn't spontaneously combusted, yet." They spent hours in the training hall, moving from one exercise to the next. Kael discovered that the staff could project energy shields, levitate objects, and even manipulate light to create temporary illusions of himself or Lyara. Each new ability brought laughter as much as triumph. Kael accidentally levitated a stack of chairs, sending them spinning like a carousel. Once, a holographic clone of himself dashed into a wall, bouncing harmlessly across the room, leaving him doubled over in laughter. Lyara's guidance was patient but firm. "You have to learn to anticipate, not just react. The staff can extend your instincts, but it cannot replace thought." "Instincts? Sure, I have plenty. Mostly survival instincts and trip-on-everything instincts," Kael said, ducking under a beam of shimmering energy. Despite the humor, Kael felt the stakes pressing closer. The rogue starship was approaching Elyndra faster than anyone had predicted. The Council's projections had shown that its energy disruptors could destabilize planetary cores within hours if left unchecked. Kael could feel it in his chest. The weight of expectation, the thrill of impending challenge, and the absurd terror of potentially failing in spectacular, sticky ways. Lyara guided him to a simulation chamber, where the staff projected a scaled model of the rogue ship. Kael's task was to navigate its defenses, redirecting energy flows and neutralizing its systems. He twirled the staff experimentally. A pulse of light ricocheted off a simulated energy barrier, accidentally knocking over a miniature defense turret. "Okay," he said, brushing himself off. "Maybe not that kind of improvisation." Lyara laughed, long ears twitching. "Improvisation is your strength. Sometimes chaos has a logic all its own." Over the next cycles of training, Kael began to understand the staff's nuances. It reacted to humor as much as thought, adapting to the rhythms of his unpredictable mind. A well-timed joke could redirect energy, A witty remark could unlock hidden projections, and his accidental stumbles often produced surprisingly effective results. Slowly, the chaos of his nature began to blend with precision, and for the first time he felt not just like a chosen human, but a partner to the weapon. By twilight, both were exhausted, hair and braid glowing faintly from residual energy. Kael sank to the floor, laughing at the absurdity of nearly toppling a holographic city twice in a row. Lyara smiled, brushing a stray lock of silver hair behind her ear. "You're ready," she said softly. "Not perfectly, not without mistakes, but ready. And that may be exactly what the galaxy needs." Kael stared at the horizon, the city's violet lights reflecting in his eyes. He felt it, the mix of humor, courage, and responsibility intertwining, shaping him into something larger than he'd imagined. Somewhere between chaos and control, he was beginning to understand the true meaning of being chosen. The rogue starship waited, and now, so did he, ready, however imperfectly, for what came next. The horizon of Elyndra glowed violet and gold, the floating city humming like a living thing as the rogue starship emerged from the outer atmosphere, sleek and menacing, its energy disruptors glowing with an ominous red light. Kael stood at the edge of a palace platform, staff in hand, hair tangled, face streaked with dust and phosphorescent fruit residue from yesterday's training exercises. The staff pulsed in resonance with his heartbeat, almost impatiently, and Kael muttered, "All right, let's not blow anything up too early, okay?" Lyara appeared beside him, long ears tilted forward, her silver braid catching the fading light. "Focus," she said, voice calm but firm, a hint of amusement in her violet eyes. "This isn't just about protection, it's about shaping the outcome." Kael exhaled, gripping the staff tightly. He felt every lesson, every misstep, every accidental victory of the past days coalesce inside him. The chaos he had once feared had become his weapon. The humor that had once seemed frivolous now sharpened his instincts. For the first time, he understood the truth the staff had been trying to teach him. Unpredictability was power, and courage could wear the guise of clumsiness. The starship fired its first pulse. A beam of red energy lanced toward Elyndra, and instinctively, Kael raised the staff. Light flared, splitting into multiple protective shields that bent the energy harmlessly into the atmosphere. He ducked behind one, then the next, and for a moment felt that familiar panicked thrill, the kind that had defined his first day in Elyndra. But now, the thrill was tempered with control. The staff responded to his intention rather than his fear. He thought, scatter. The beam fragmented into harmless arcs, ricocheting across the city's floating spires. Lyara moved beside him, long ears twitching, deflecting smaller energy pulses and directing civilians to safety with elegant precision. "Ready?" she asked, glancing at him. Kael grinned as much as one could grin while bracing for planetary-level annihilation. "Ready-ish. Let's make it memorable." The battle unfolded as a chaotic dance. Kael leapt from platform to platform, the staff extending beams of energy to redirect, disarm, and confuse the starship's automated defenses. Each misstep became strategy. He tripped over a low-energy rail, accidentally redirecting a laser into a cluster of enemy drones, frying them in a spectacle of sparks and light. Lyara's laughter echoed alongside the hum of the staff, a strange melody of determination and relief. Inside the starship's projected model, Kael saw the source of its destabilizing energy, a crystalline core designed to harmonize, or disrupt, entire planetary grids. He focused, hands steady for the first time, and willed the staff to interface. It pulsed, glowing brighter, humming in sync with his thoughts. Light extended like threads of silk, weaving into the core's energy lattice, unraveling it slowly, deliberately. Lyara joined him mentally, projecting her calm, disciplined focus into the weave. The starship quaked, systems faltering, and Kael realized they were not fighting alone. The staff and their combined will had become a conduit of something larger. The rogue starship's energy signature imploded in a controlled burst, harmlessly dispersing into the upper atmosphere. Elyndra's core stabilized, the city safe once more. Kael slumped onto the platform, breathless, staff humming softly in approval. Lyara landed beside him, long ears flicking gently. "You've grown," she said simply, almost softly, "from protector to something greater." Kael laughed faintly, shaking his head. I guess the staff had a better idea of my potential than I did." He looked at it, a mix of gratitude and exasperation. "And here I thought I was just tripping through life." The city lights shimmered beneath them, civilians cheering from below, unaware of the precise chaos that had saved their world. The Council of Elders appeared on the observation platform, nodding in respect, not at perfection, but at courage, creativity, and the unpredictable heroism that Kael had embodied. Lyara took his hand, long fingers brushing his. "The galaxy may have underestimated humans," she said, "but I think it has learned something about you." Kael smiled, feeling the weight of responsibility and the exhilaration of survival, humor and all. The staff pulsed one final, approving glow. He was no longer just a human man sent to protect a princess. He was chosen for something larger, something unexpected, something only he could accomplish. The galaxy was safer, Elyndra thrived, and amidst the chaos, Kael had discovered his place, strangely, wonderfully, and unpredictably his own. As night fell over Elyndra, purple and gold lights reflecting off the floating platforms, Kael and Lyara stood side by side, watching the city breathe, laughing softly at the absurdity and improbability of it all. For the first time, Kael felt entirely at home among stars, chaos, and destiny, knowing that the journey had changed him in ways he could never have imagined, and that, somehow,